All right, everyone, it's time to talk about Mo Russia, the Russian election interference that everyone's playing up. I wanted to point something out. I oppose Bernie Sanders completely. I would never vote for him. I see through his economic snake oil. He's an inept, bumbling oaf. He's also almost 80 and has heart problems, and I'd rather have a president who will be able to at least finish one term. That being said, he's not a Russian agent. The idea that he's a Russian asset, that he's trying to destroy the republic, or that he's a Soviet spy or something is clearly wrong. This was also lied about with regards to Trump, and there's no truthfulness behind them at all. Tulsi Gabbard got smeared this way. As soon as she did well, she manages to strike a blow against Kamala Harris. What happens within 24 hours? Oh, she's a Russian asset. Bernie Sanders becomes the front runner, which he has, without being a neoliberal corporatist. Oh, he's a Russian asset. Trump becomes the first president since before Ronald Reagan to actually attempt to address the issues he campaigned on. Well, he's a Russian asset. I'm beginning to see a pattern here where people who are outside of the mold of the corporate fabric become Russian agents. And in none of these cases do I believe the tale. No, not even a little bit. Trump is not a Russian asset. The idea that he partnered with Putin or was interfered with the Russians at all is clearly and objectively false, and we can prove it because we can literally look at years and years of nonstop looking into every aspect of his life. Investigation from the FBI, the CIA, the DOJ, the Pentagon getting involved, Senate Judiciary, Senate Intel, House Intel Committee. All of these different groups with all sorts of different wonderful legislative and sometimes even executive powers have looked into the minutia of everything 2016 election. Not one instance, not a single instance of, not a single bit of credible evidence was ever found that Trump or anyone directly associated with him was compromised by the Russians. The closest thing that you got was Manafort 10 years prior to the election even existing, back during the middle of the Bush administration, laundering money for a Ukrainian group that had Russian ties. The next closest thing, a single Russian troll farm with a few $100,000. Wow. I'm sure that troll farm, making Facebook ads, which as far as I know is not illegal to do whatsoever, somehow, this is Putin's best and brightest. Putin's best and brightest, it's a far cry from the Iron Curtain days. It's a far cry from Duran Duran View to a Kill sort of spy versus spy thrillers and James Bond and stuff. That was the good old days. Putin's power has much diminished over time. Now he buys Facebook ads. Come on. You gotta be goddamn kidding me if you expect me to take this seriously. I don't, and I never will, because we've got all of the intelligence that it's wrong. The thing is, they very publicly disclosed everything with the Mueller report and all of these other reports because they wanted to attack Trump, but not a single word of it actually implicates Trump or anyone close to him doing anything wrong. There's a reason all these people are home free. Again, the closest thing tangibly you'd get is Michael Flynn. He's still out and free. He's not even in jail, I think. They want to put him in jail. Most of what they had a problem with him involved Turkey, not Russia, and certainly didn't involve any knowledge of the Trump campaign. Now fast forward a little bit. Now they're saying the same thing about Bernie Sanders. I would never in a billion years vote for the crazy socialist. I would never in a million years do anything but say I am probably the next best known Vermonter, at least in terms of the reach of my platform, and I will personally dedicate myself to doing whatever I can on all of my platforms to keep Bernie Sanders from being nominee, and if he's nominated, being elected. I will do that, but not because I'm worried about my Russia. Not because of my Russia influence, Russian interference, all this fucking Joe McCarthy 2.0 bullshit that we're hearing from the legacy media. I don't trust the New York Slimes and CNNs of the world anyway. But especially if they're making claims like this, where's your evidence? I hear that the Department of Justice or one of these groups briefed Bernie Sanders on how the Russians were trying to get him elected. Are you nuts? Trump comes out, he's amused by this fact and says, nobody told me. His tweet on the subject is sort of the final word now, isn't it? So essentially, you're saying that the Russians are trying to hack the 2020 election. But our own commander-in-chief wasn't told about it? He wasn't briefed on this fact that the Russians were trying to get involved? Why is that? I'd like to know. I think that seems a little bit mysterious. I think that Trump let on that he knew a lot more than that people think that he does with one tweet. Nobody will look into it, of course, because the legacy media doesn't do journalism anymore. No, I wouldn't vote for Tulsi Gabbard, but she was never a Russian agent. She's just really anti-gun. She doesn't understand the Second Amendment, and she's a tax and spend liberal and basically just a cult of personality candidate because she happens not to be in her 40s yet, and so she looks good for the camera and knows how to surf and, sort of keeps, I guess, fit because she's in the military. So I wouldn't vote for her, but not because she's a Russian spy. Bernie Sanders is almost 80, has heart problems, wants to tax me through the roof to the point where I probably would have to become an expat and go to another country to pay a lower tax rate. But he's not a Russian spy. He's just a fool. He's just an idiot. Donald Trump is not a Russian asset. He's a routine populist whose message 20 years ago would have been considered totally normal, Reaganistic in its essence. No Democrat would have had any problem with it. Nobody would have suspected he was a Russian agent. And by the way, if the Russians decided to put Trump in that office to destroy the U.S., they did a damn poor job. Just look at the economy. The economy, our diplomacy around the world, our standing in general. And the fact that he runs rings around every political opponent. You think that Putin would be able to turn him into a puppet? I'm not sure that he would. I think you might be getting the stringer and the stringy reversed on that one. I think that there might be a puppet involved, but I doubt that their name is Donald Trump. Let's just put it that way. No, it's bullshit. It's propaganda. It's legacy media propaganda. The corporate media fears another 4 years of Trump because he'd have a mandate to actually crack down on some of the stupidity that's been entrenched by the deep state in our economy within the propagandistic government, which is basically what the legacy media is. It's state media at this point almost for the neoliberals and neocons. Crack down and prevent wars from happening. They also fear Sanders. In most part, they fear him being nominee because they know it'll hand Trump the election. That's why they're trying to stop Sanders. They're not afraid of Sanders' policies. They're socialists too. They're all far leftists. The neoliberals are far left. Socialism's just a little bit further. They don't have a huge problem with it. They don't see it as a problem because they can easily control people if they gain that centrality. No, they're worried that Trump will crush Bernie Sanders, that he will absolutely destroy him. Here's what they're afraid of. Trump wins in 2020 by a small margin. He has a mandate. They're worried about that. Trump gets a candidate going up against him who might drop dead of a heart attack up on stage anyway, who's in poor health, who's literally elderly, who's, almost half a decade older, who throws around the term socialism as a good thing. He will get a fucking annihilated. And Trump will say, hey, I won every state. I have a man, I can do whatever I want. I'm king now, basically. Oh, they're terrified of that. I've got the House of Representatives supermajority, and the Republicans have to kiss my ass because I gave it to them. That's what Trump will do, and they're terrified of that happening. They know that Bernie will lose. That's why they're trying to stop him. They want the nominee to at least stand a fighting chance. Now, when I analyze it, I say most of the others wouldn't as well. Biden, he's demented. Elizabeth Warren's such a chronic liar, it might be easier to take her apart like a goddamn tin can than Bernie Sanders, arguably. The only one that I consider viable is Buttigieg. Bloomberg would probably do better than Bernie Sanders, and that's going some. That's what they're worried about. That's why they're throwing out the Ma Russia bullshit. And it is bullshit. Let it be known, there is no truth whatsoever to the claim that Russia is interfering in the U.S. election beyond the level it's always done and that we do to Russia too, which is essentially sock accounts and Facebook ads. It's not spy versus spy. It's keeping one another on their toes and wasting a lot of time and money, really, to tell the truth. That's about all. Peace out.